Committee will come to order. Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, thank you for interrupting me as I was interrupting a witness earlier. I should not have interrupted, and I appreciated you making me wait my turn. Mr. Hook, the reason I interrupted is I don't like being lied to. And you said something that you repeated twice that has been said to this committee before that I just think is completely wrong. And that is that the JCPOA, the Iran deal, one of the reasons it was bad is because it expires. And I think you know that that's false. There are provisions in the agreement that expire. That's correct. So the agreement has a set of provisions dealing with centrifuges and inspections. And some of the provisions, you're correct, expire at year 8 or year 15 or year 20 or year 25 or year 30. But to say to me, to our committee, to the American public that the deal is bad because it expires is just wrong. First paragraph of the deal, preface. I said first sentence, first paragraph. I was wrong. It's not the first sentence. First paragraph of the deal. Iran reaffirms that under no circumstances will Iran ever seek, develop, or acquire any nuclear weapons. That's permanent. Ever. Under no circumstances. Any. That is a permanent provision that they have signed to that never expires unless somebody like the United States decides to blow up the deal. Second page of the deal, preamble and general provisions. I guess they felt that was important enough that they wanted to repeat it twice. Iran reaffirms that under no circumstances will Iran ever seek, develop, or acquire any nuclear weapons. That's not the only permanent part of the deal. While there are some provisions that expire, and anybody can feel free to like or not like the sunset on those provisions, there's also a provision that I believe at year 30, extra investigation, examination of their nuclear arsenal provisions expire, but at year 30, Iran agrees to permanently abide by the additional protocol set up by the IAEA for inspections in the aftermath of North Korea being caught cheating. I wouldn't dwell on it except other administration witnesses have come here and looked us in the eye and said the same thing. I get it that you guys want to say the deal was bad, but by lying about it and suggesting that the deal was bad because it expires, you tremendously weaken your credibility. I believe that the administration backing out of the JCPOA was incredibly foolish. Who cares what I think? I'm a Democrat. I don't think the administration cares one whit what I think. How about Secretary Mattis? How about Secretary Tillerson? How about head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joe Dunford? I'm on the Armed Services Committee. And they appeared when the president was trying to decide what to do about the deal and said staying in the deal was in United States' interests. All right, well, forget about them. Maybe they don't know anything. Our European allies begged us to stay in the deal. Okay, who cares about allies? Maybe we don't. The International Atomic Energy Agency said Iran was complying with the deal. President Trump felt otherwise, just like President Bush trashed the IAEA when it said Iraq didn't have had a program of weapons of mass destruction. So this is a deal that had some provisions that did in fact expire, provisions that expire, but it was a permanent deal where Iran suggested they would never seek, purchase, acquire, develop nuclear weapons. That promise was enforceable by sanctions. That promise could potentially have given legal justification for military action against Iran if they had violated the provision. The additional protocol that was permanent gives the United States not only intel, but intel plus inspection data that if we ever needed to take military action, we could target it in a more sophisticated way. And when I see the administration coming and telling the American public we don't like the deal because it expires, it just infuriates me. We should have done what Senator Cardin said. The administration should have stayed in the JCPOA and then done exactly what you were trying to do. Sanction Iran for all the other bad activities that you've testified to here today. And many of us on both sides of the aisle had supported sanctions against Iran for missiles, human rights violations, their aggression in the region. We should have kept the permanent promise and the additional protocol being permanent in our pocket and worked with our European allies to get sanctions against Iran for those activities, which you could have done by your own testimony today, except you were asking for additional negotiations of the JCPOA itself. The withdrawal has made the region less safe, and the withdrawal has made it much more difficult for you to do what you want to do, which is to get another deal. Because if the deal is being complied with and we backed out of it, why would a country do another deal with us? They would think we would back out of it. Backing out of the deal has made it much harder to get a deal with North Korea. I applaud the president's efforts in trying. When North Korea sees the U.S. backing out of a deal that the IAEA said Iran was complying with, it makes it much more difficult for them to get on board. So I just wanted to put on the record, that's why I was agitated. You can be against the deal. You can be against the expiration of provisions of the deal. But to tell the American public the deal was bad because it expires, it's just a lie. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr.
answer
Would
that?
you like to respond, please?
I would like to respond to that.
I'm sure that Senator Kaine will give you the rest of his time, such as it is.
It is the case that the deal will expire. And I don't think it is a material distinction to say that after all of the substance of the deal expires, that the deal doesn't expire because Iran makes a commitment to never get a nuclear weapon. I think that's a misreading, and it's a misleading account of the Iran nuclear deal. In 2031...
Do you think I misquoted what I just read?
No,
Are you accusing me of
I'm happy to
misquoting
go
it?
through everything that you raised.
No, but are you saying that you think it's a misreading? Did I incorrectly state those provisions in the preface and preamble to the deal?
As I understood what you said was that because Iran reaffirms that under no circumstances will Iran ever develop or acquire any nuclear weapons, that means that this deal never expires. The provisions of the deal expire.
That's a provision of the deal.
It's not a provision.
It is in the preamble.
It's
and it is
preambular.
in the preface.
It's not
a provision.
But it's a preambular. It's not an operative paragraph. It's a preambular paragraph. It's hortatory. So in 2031, all restrictions lift on the Iran nuclear deal.
Except that provision and the agreement to follow the additional protocol in perpetuity.
If Iran has no intent to acquire a nuclear weapon, what were they doing with that atomic archive in the heart of Tehran that Israel had to liberate?
Well, look, if you want to talk about what Iran is doing wrong, that's fine. I'm just saying you just
I'm asking
why
do they have
the deal to the
No,
American public.
I did not misrepresent it. I stated very clearly that the Iran deal will expire. It's
We will,
misleading
Mr. Chair, the wording stands as it is, and I'm perfectly comfortable to let the people look at the first paragraph of the deal and the preamble and compare it against this witness's statement. I'm perfectly comfortable just...
That's fair, Senator Kaine. And the language of the agreement cannot be argued with. It is black and white. The opinion as to whether or not that is an expiring provision, I think, is subject to debate. Some of us feel one way, some of us feel another. That's a fair statement. I hope that and I understand how it agitates anybody if you come in and try to tell somebody facts are different than what they are. But I think there's a lot more important issues here over whether or not that provision was expiring. I think we can go forward with what we have to do about the situation that we have in front of us without agreeing on whether a provision that isn't or an agreement that is no longer in effect had a provision that said this or that. And again, I say get the same frustration you do when people try to tell me that something that I believe differently. But in any event, I think it'd be productive if we did go forward with other parts. And there's nobody going to argue with you that the language of the agreement isn't exactly what it is. So thank you, Mr. Let's go to, I had next up Senator Cruz.